67% of men, given the choice between sitting quietly with their own thoughts and giving themselves a painful electric shock, chose the shock. This actually happened. In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia put people in a bare room, no phone, no book, no window, nothing, and asked them to do exactly one thing: sit there and think for 15 minutes. The room had a single button. Press it, and you got a real, genuinely unpleasant electric jolt. And every single person had already tried that shock beforehand and said out loud that they would pay money to never feel it again. Then they were left alone with their own minds, and the majority of the men started pressing the button. One man pressed it 190 times in 15 minutes. Read that back slowly. A group of totally ordinary people decided that physical pain was more bearable than being alone with their own thoughts. And look, you felt a smaller version of this. You're standing in an elevator for 11 seconds, and your hand is already reaching for your phone. A web page takes 3 seconds to load, and you feel this little itch. A low-grade static under your skin that whispers, "Do something, anything." That itch has a name. It's boredom. And it might be the strangest and the most uniquely human thing about you. Real quick. And I want you to actually answer this one in your head, not just nod along. When is the last time you were awake, alone, and completely unstimulated? No phone, no music, no podcast, no TV murmuring in the background. Just you and the inside of your own skull that for more than 10 minutes. For a lot of us, the honest answer is, I genuinely can't remember. Hold on to that. Because by the end of this video, I think that fact is going to look a lot more disturbing than it does right now. Okay? Here's the thing. We treat boredom like it's nothing. A dead zone, a rainy Sunday, the DMV waiting room, just empty air between the interesting parts of life. That is exactly backwards. And it might be the most expensive misunderstanding you carry around every single day. Because boredom isn't the absence of something. It's an event. It's your brain running one of the most complicated programs it is capable of running. And over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you that this one feeling, the one you swat away 100 times a day, quietly built cathedrals, pushed ships across oceans no one had mapped, and is also, right now, being deliberately weaponized against you by basically every app on your phone. But to see any of that, we have to start with a question that sounds obvious and absolutely is not. Are humans really the only animal that gets bored? Because the honest answer broke my brain a little. Here's what most people don't realize. The word boredom is shockingly new, like historically brand new. The noun barely existed in English until the middle of the 1800s. It shows up prominently in Charles Dickens's novel Bleak House in 1852. Before that, the French had the idea of ennui, this aristocratic weariness with life. But ordinary people didn't really have a common word for the everyday experience we're talking about. Sit with how strange that is for a second. One of the most common feelings you will have today was so rare, or so rarely spoken about, that the English language didn't even bother giving it a proper name until Queen Victoria was on the throne. So, which is it? Did humans always feel this and just quietly suffer in silence for 100,000 years? Or did we build a world that manufactures an entirely new kind of suffering? I'll give you the answer before the end, and it is not the one you'd guess. But first, the objection you're already forming. Now you might be thinking, come on, obviously animals get bored too. My dog looks bored. The tiger at the zoo pacing back and forth looks miserable. And you're not wrong to notice that. There's real science here. In 2012, researchers studying mink on farms found something fascinating. Mink kept in small, empty cages became desperate for any stimulation, When given the chance, they'd rush toward objects, even slightly scary ones, just to have something happen. The researchers argued this looked a lot like boredom. Zoo animals show it too. That repetitive pacing is a sign of a mind with nothing to do and no way to escape. So animals absolutely can experience something like boredom. Understimulation is real, and it's a genuine welfare problem for animals in captivity. But here's a counterintuitive one to chew on while we go deeper. The safer, the richer, and the more comfortable a society becomes in the more boredom it produces. Not less. More. Poverty and danger are a lot of terrible things, but they are almost never boring. Boredom, in a strange way, is a luxury problem, a symptom of having your survival handled. Keep that in your back pocket because it's about to matter. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, what animals experience and what you experience in that elevator are not the same thing, not even close. Here's the difference, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. An animal gets bored when there is genuinely nothing to do. Take away the stimulation, and the mink suffers. Give it back, and the mink is fine. But a human being can be drowning in things to do and still be bored out of their mind. Look at your own life. You have a phone in your pocket right now with access to essentially every song ever recorded, every film, every book, a live feed of the entire planet, and infinite scrolling video. There is objectively more available to you in this moment than to any king or emperor who ever lived. And you still get bored. You still scroll to the bottom of everything and think, ugh, there's nothing to do. That is not a stimulation problem. There is infinite stimulation. That is a meaning problem. And this is the thing that seems to be genuinely, distinctly human. Human boredom isn't your mind saying, there's nothing happening. It's your mind saying, there's nothing happening that matters to me. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine two people sitting in the exact same waiting room for 2 hours. One is waiting for a bus that's running late, watching the minutes crawl, checking the clock every 90 seconds, absolutely miserable. The other is sitting in that same room, in the same chair, waiting for news that their first child has just been born. Same room, same chairs, same 2 hours. One person is in agony. The other doesn't even notice the time. The boredom was never in the room. It was in the meaning. So why did evolution build a mind that does this? Why would we be designed to feel bad even when everything is fine and safe and comfortable? To understand that, you have to understand two things about the human brain that most animals just don't have, at least not to the same degree. The first is our relationship with time. You don't just live in the present moment, you are constantly, automatically, comparing your present to an imagined past and an imagined future. When you're bored, part of what you're doing is running a simulation. This moment could be better than it is. An animal in a comfortable, safe environment mostly just exists in it. You sit in comfort and your mind immediately goes, yeah, but what else is out there? Let me hit you with a number that reframes your entire life. In 2010, two Harvard researchers built an app that pinged thousands of people at random moments and asked them two things. What are you doing? And is your mind actually on it? The result? Our minds are wandering off the present moment, nearly half of our waking lives. Around 47% of the time. Half. And here's the gut punch. People were measurably less happy when their minds wandered, even when they wandered somewhere pleasant. So your brain has a built-in habit of walking out of the room you're standing in, and it charges you for the privilege. Why on earth would evolution install that? Stay with me, because that question is the whole point of this video. The second thing is almost eerie. Your brain comes with a kind of screensaver. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, the circuits that flick on the instant you stop focusing on a task. And here's the unsettling part. It does not idle. The moment you stop doing something, it starts doing something. It replays that awkward thing you said in 2019. It rehearses arguments you are never going to have. It narrates your own life like a documentary only you can hear. Your mind, left alone, does not go quiet. It turns on you. Which is exactly why that room with the shock button was so unbearable. Those people weren't sitting in peaceful silence. They were trapped in a private little theater that only plays reruns of their own head. And some of them would rather be electrocuted than sit through the show. So here's the psychological shift underneath the whole thing. Boredom is not an off switch. Boredom is a signal. It's an internal alarm that goes off when your attention is unengaged, and its entire purpose is to make the current situation feel unpleasant enough that you get up and go find something meaningful. Boredom is your mind's search function. It is the feeling of your potential not being used, and it is deeply uncomfortable on purpose, because a signal you could easily ignore would be a useless signal. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this one feeling, this thing we treat as trivial, might be one of the most important forces in all of human history. Think about it. Every animal on Earth, if you meet its basic needs, food, safety, warmth, reproduction, is essentially content. It stops. It rests. Its work is done. Humans are the one species that gets all of that handled and then goes, okay, but now what? That restlessness is the engine of civilization. We didn't cross oceans because we were starving on the shore. We didn't paint on cave walls because it kept us warm. We didn't build telescopes and write symphonies and invent the internet because survival demanded it. A huge amount of what we call human achievement is, at its root, our refusal to sit still in comfort. It's boredom, sublimated into curiosity. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard put it about as bluntly as you can. He wrote that boredom is the root of all evil, and he meant something specific by that. He saw that this restless human need for something more is behind our worst impulses. The reckless gambles, the drama we manufacture, the wars started by comfortable men who were, underneath it all, terminally bored. But here's the flip side he was also pointing at. That exact same root produces our best things too. The novel you love, the song that saved you, the cure for the disease. Every one of them exists because some human being couldn't tolerate emptiness and decided to make something instead. So boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is the raw material. The only question that matters is what you do with it. Which brings me back to that room. The shock button, the itch in the elevator. Here's the trap of modern life, and it's a genuinely dangerous one. We now have, for the first time in history, an instant, frictionless, always available way to make the boredom signal go away. The phone, the feed, the endless scroll. And when you kill the signal that fast, you never get its message. One number before the takeaway. A research firm called Zagao wired up people's phones and counted every single tap, swipe, and click over the course of a day. The average person? More than 2,600. The heavy users? Over 5,400 a day. That is not a habit. That is the sound of thousands of tiny boredom signals getting silenced before they can finish a single sentence. So here's my direct question to you, and I want it to sting a little. What have you never thought of? What idea, what realization, what plan for your own life, simply because you never once let the boredom finish talking? Remember what boredom actually is. It's your mind telling you that this isn't meaningful, go find something that is. So every time you numb it in 3 seconds with a scroll, you're hanging up on a phone call from the deepest part of yourself. You're silencing the exact alarm that's supposed to push you toward a life that matters. So here's the actionable part, and it's simple, but it's not easy. Next time you feel that itch, in line, in the elevator, in the quiet, try to just not reach for the phone. Not as some productivity hack. just to hear what the boredom is trying to say. Because on the other side of that discomfort, if you can sit in it for even a minute, is very often the beginning of an actual thought, an idea, a question, the thing you were meant to go make. The people who change things aren't the ones who never get bored. They're the ones who learned to listen to it instead of drowning it. So let's go back to the beginning. Is the human the only animal that gets bored? Not exactly. Animals can suffer from having nothing to do. But the human version is something else entirely. We are the animal that can have everything to do and still ache for something more. We're the only creature that gets bored not because the world is empty, but because we can imagine it being fuller. And that finally answers the question I left hanging earlier, the one about the missing word. We didn't invent boredom in 1852. We always had the capacity for it. We just spent the last 2 centuries building a world comfortable enough and safe enough to let it run wild. The feeling is ancient. The epidemic is new. And when you sit with that, you realize boredom is really just the shadow of our greatest gift. The same mind that can look at a comfortable, safe, pleasant afternoon and feel that restless is this all there is. That is the exact same mind that can dream up cathedrals and space stations and stories that outlive us. You can't have one without the other. The price of being able to imagine a better world is the discomfort of noticing you're not living in it yet. So maybe boredom isn't a flaw in the design. Maybe it's the feeling of being awake. It's your potential, tapping you on the shoulder, asking what you're going to do with the strange, restless, wildly creative mind you were given. The only question is whether you'll pick up your phone or pick up the call. I'm Nick. Thanks for thinking with me. I'll see you in the next one.